welcome to this interview with my good friend Petra. I'm very glad she agreed to join me for this interview because she is a very, very experienced and amazing teacher of 21 years. But on top of that, she has established a freelance career as a photographer, and that is why we're here for today. We are going to talk about that exciting journey of Petra becoming a full-time freelance photographer. Welcome, Petra. Thanks for agreeing to do this interview. It's very exciting.
It's very exciting. Thank you for asking me. I'm looking forward to it.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So, I think we'll just get started right away. So the first question I have for you is, how did you get into photography? What can you explain your own journey of how you got from teaching into photography? I think that's very interesting.
Well, it's a long journey, but a fun journey. So I started becoming interested in photography because of my passion for live music events. And I had some friends who did photography within the music industry. So they taught me initially how to use a camera in those situations. And it's my passion for music that fueled my passion for photography. And through going to lots of live music events and festivals, I learned how to capture those moments, those key moments. And the challenge was always capturing a visual, an audio moment through a visual medium. And I was just drawn to that and drawn to the energy and the atmosphere within those environments. But then, being a teacher, of course, we have lots of those moments within the education system. Live music events, performances, sports events.
Yeah.
So I started using my photography, not just as a hobby, but also within my profession as a photographer. And more, I gained a reputation within schools of being somebody who was good at photography within that setting as well. So that's my journey, and then I was able to bit by bit build up my reputation within London as a gig photographer, but also build up my reputation within schools as somebody who'd be able to record key events.
Okay, that's very interesting. So I can hear from how you're describing how you got into the music photography that you certainly had a kind of like desire to capture, I suppose, people enjoying themselves. Is that okay to say? Fair to say?
That's part of it. It's part of the fun, but it's also it's the performance. So it's all about the performance, really. Yeah. And with any performance, there's constant movement, there's constant sound, there's constant visual highlights, whether it's a child performing in a school play, whether it's in the sports arena, if it's at a festival. So I've done theatrical performances, I've done comedy events and musical performances. So when somebody is moving around on stage, they're doing so many things. You have a split second when you take a photograph to capture a moment. And it's that challenge that really excites me.
Yeah, that is very exciting. And I think, for you who haven't seen Petra's photos, unfortunately, you won't know. But when I look at your photos, I can really feel that is your passion and your drive, and that you really try to capture emotions as well. So when I look at your photos, definitely, I can see how you try, the artists performing to show their feelings and emotions they go through, and you capture it so well, because it must be really hard. I'm not a photographer, but especially when I try to take photos of people moving, that's very difficult. So that is an art, isn't it?
It is. And also the fact that you're trying to capture something completely audio in a visual format is another aspect. So it's that energy of the sound coming through in what you're looking at.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very sweet.
No. It's I feel that's important, because people who are listening to this interview are probably interested in photography and becoming a photographer themselves. So I suppose there are lots of different avenues that you can take as a photographer. But I think what what I hear from how you're describing it is you have to find that passion first within yourself. So obviously for you, it was music photography and gig photography. But I think as because it's so competitive, isn't it, as well? You know, the whole.
It is. The music industry is competitive for everybody involved, not just performers. And as a music photographer, it is something that you need to put a lot of time into. But I think most music photographers are so passionate about what they do that they're happy to do that, just to be involved in what you're doing. And it's a long journey because there's so much to learn about the type of photography you're doing as well.
Exactly. That's a good point you're raising there. Can you explain a little bit about how you learned about photography? Did you teach yourself or did you do courses?
I think, like a lot of photographers, that I learned in a lot of different ways. So to begin with, luckily, I had friends who were photographers. So they taught me the starting point of how to find my way around the camera. But then, from that, I've done a lot of courses. So there are lots of photography courses out there. There are free courses, there are degrees, there are workshops, and I've done a little bit of everything. I must say my starting point was going to the meetups. So I'm sure everybody knows about Meetup. It's global. And they do lots. Photography on Meetup is fantastic. You can do studio photography, you can do street photography. They have so many. Some are free, some you pay for, but it's a really minimal amount. So and then I did some degree courses as well. I've done workshops. I've done group meetings with other people, sharing ideas. But best teacher, of course, is experience, being out there, being in the field. Playing with your camera, going on Google. Google is our friend.
That is very true. Or YouTube, I guess.
And YouTube as well. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, that's very interesting, because I feel that, you know, a lot of people, if they know maybe they have a passion for photography, they might not know where to start. So for you, maybe because you were interested in music photography and gig photography, you might have looked for a different type of photography course compared to somebody interested in landscape photography.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So find those small courses to begin with. Don't go big. Find small courses. Find the equipment at a basic level and build on the equipment, because there's so much out there when it comes to the technology. And of course, there are key things that every photographer needs within their little suitcase. Adobe is everybody's go-to.
I can imagine.
That's so important. Choose your camera equipment that you want really carefully. Talk to people. It's expensive. So make sure when you buy, hire first.
Great idea.
That's what I did. Before I actually took up photography full-time, I hired all of my equipment. And I still hire equipment because I can't afford to buy it all because it's so expensive. Hire first. Find the equipment you like. Okay,
so did you find that online, or how did you go about that?
I'm going to drop another website name again now. Fat Llama is amazing.
Fat Llama, okay.
It will be local to you. The people I've rented off have all been so helpful and so accommodating. Fat Llama.
Okay. That's good to know, I think, because as you say, you know, especially if you're starting from scratch and you might not have the money to invest in the equipment, that is a really good tip to know, just to hire it. Thanks for sharing that. That's great. Okay, so now I want to go a bit deeper into what you do now. So you've been working as a freelance photographer for about 6 months, is that correct?
About 6 months, about 6 months.
Okay, so you quit teaching and you said, I'm doing this full time, and I'm sure that was very, very liberating, but also maybe a bit scary. Because it is a big change, isn't it? So I would like to know how you established yourself as a photographer online, because as we already said, you know, it's very competitive out there. And so I would just like to know a bit more about how you went about that.
So it started when I was still teaching. So I already had my website set up. I was established on Instagram. Instagram's a really good vehicle for photographers. It's visual, it's instant, it's tagged, it's so easy. But obviously I'd spent years building up my connections and networking within the music industry, and that really helped because artists in any field, and in my experience in the music industry, are so supportive of each other. So it's all about supporting each other's causes, supporting each other's events, and then bit by bit your work is seen, the quality of your work is seen, and then you can get to the point where you can start charging, you can start low, of course. You're new to the business, your friends in the industry. So that's how I started. But also because I've been working for different music promoters, I was able to connect with lots of different musicians throughout that, and different people, and then you build on it. It's all about communication and talking to people and letting them know, and the online platforms are so important. So I built my website, my music photography website. I was on Instagram. Twitter as well is a really good place for just like connecting with people as well, even though it's not as visual. And I had a Facebook photography page as well, but I think most people are aware that Facebook isn't that well used at the moment. Instagram is the place that people go to. Yes, sorry.
Sorry, can I just ask a question about that? Because I know some people use Facebook also to connect with people via Facebook groups. Is that something that you have looked into, or not so much?
I have a couple of times, but the forums that I use tend to be a little bit more global. So my main forum, and I would advise all new photographers to join this, is the Association of Photographers. Go to the Association of Photographers. You can start at a low rate. I think it's £25 a year. And it's a really, everyone
That's amazing. Yeah,
it's really useful. You get all forum and messages sent to your inbox if you want to, but you will also be able to buy the Bible of legal requirements, which is the Association of Photographers.
That is useful.
Book, and it takes you through everything, all the legalities, all the licensing, all the do's and don'ts. It's very large. There's a lot in there, but it's such a good reference point. So that's something I would advise people to do straight away, is join the Association of Photographers.
Oh, that's a very good secret tip, I think. Yeah, very good. Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. But you also have a website for your school photography, is that correct?
I do, yes. So this is the other thing I did, is when I first decided to set up my business, I took a course, like a one-to-one tutoring course at, should I drop another place?
Go for it.
It's a place called Photo Fusion in Brixton. It's a really good little photo workshop place. They do individual courses, and they took me through lots of things to do when you're setting up your business. And he said to me, right, you've got two main strands to your business. You have your school photography and you have your music photography. They're very different, set up separate websites.
Yeah.
So I have two separate websites. My music photography, where I do my blogging, like musicians, etc. And I have my school photography, which is all secure, all passworded. But the nice thing is I can share it with the school can share it with the parents, and it's very controllable and very safe and very easy to manage.
That's interesting. So the difference between both websites, I suppose, is your music photography website is more focused on sharing your photography. Is that fair when I say that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely,
and your school photography website serves more a purpose of people being able to access the photos. Is that correct?
Yes, they can view them from the school links, and then if they want to, they can order prints, etc., just via me. So it's all very secure.
Okay, so when people order via your website, how does the printing then work of your photos?
So the website's linked to a lab. The lab is specified by me through the website, and then they will message me to let me know that orders are coming in, and I approve the orders. So it's all done in a very secure way, but it's nice because it's all compact and it's all on one website.
Oh wow, yeah, that's really handy, and I'm sure the parents appreciate that as well.
They do, yeah, definitely.
That's great. Okay, that's very interesting, because you're doing two very different things, as you said, and it's still photography though. So I think that's really interesting to know for people out there who are not sure yet what kind of photography they want to go into.
They're very different, but they're very much the same. This is the interesting thing, because in schools, I'm taking photographs of live performances, and at gigs, I'm taking photographs. So the actual skills I'm using with the camera are very similar, but the business side of it is very different. And the way you promote it is very different, obviously.
Obviously, yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So going back to Instagram, you only use Instagram for your gig photography and your music photography.
Yes, and landscape. So as well as doing gig and music, I do landscape photography when I go traveling, or obviously cityscapes as well. So that's what I use Instagram for.
Okay. And do you, you mainly post your photographs, or how do you go about that on Instagram?
So I try, I think the hashtagging on Instagram is really important, because the hashtags, it's not just about having a lot of hashtags, it's about having the right hashtags.
Right hashtags, yeah.
You want the right people to direct what you're posting. But it's also giving it top context. When people are looking at Instagram, yes, the first thing they see is the image, and that's what appeals to them. But the context you put it in is really important. So I try to give it a little story, or I try to have a thread running through. So, for example, for the moment, I'm doing an isolation photography project, which is, it's personal. It's really just about me and my exercise walks that I take every day. But it's just, it's giving them a feel. So because photography is quite a personal thing, the photographer and the way they view the world, people want to see that personality coming through. It's quite important.
Yeah, that's a really good point, I think, especially if you're thinking about, offering photography as a service. I think that is very important, because I remember when I was looking for photographers for a friend's wedding, and I would look at their websites, the one thing that really made me choose a photographer was how I liked the way he took the photos, the angles and how he focused on the people and things like that. So I think it's a very personal thing, as you say, and that's why it's so hard to say there's just one recipe for success.
Definitely. Yeah, it is. And I would say a really important thing as a photographer setting up a business is to be open all of the time, to be open to the different ways of doing things, other people's ideas. Look at other photographers and the way they're doing things all the time as well. It really does inspire.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I learn so much from other bloggers, for example, when I look at different blogs and how they do different things. It is, you're right, it is inspiring and just gives you ideas of how you can change things around or how you can play with things as well. So yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks for pointing that out. So next I want to just quickly ask you how you became a freelance photographer. So you already said, you had a passion for it and you started going to gigs and you got how is it called? Photo passes or photography passes?
Yes, so photography passes and press passes. So to begin with, I was doing photography for free because I was learning. So I didn't feel I was an expert yet. But at the same time, part of it is about being confident in what you do. And it took me a while to gain that confidence, to be confident in saying, yes, I am a professional and I am doing this well enough to ask for a fee when I'm doing it. And I think two things gave me the confidence in that: the gig photography and actually starting to be asked. I had musicians messaging me on my Facebook photography page or on Instagram saying, oh, what are your fees? Will you do a photo shoot for us? Will you come and do this gig for us? And the more you get asked, the more your confidence grows that you can ask a fee.
Absolutely.
But the music photography, it really was about going to lots of gigs, taking lots of photographs, putting them on Instagram. Every time I put them on Instagram, I'd tag the musician, and then they'd message me and say, can I have the JPEGs? I send them the JPEGs. They put the JPEGs on their website. They put my name and tag me. So it's about building up your recognition out there. I'd write a blog about all the new musicians, send a link to their music on their website. So it's this big sort of circle of networking.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And you also have had your photographs published in a book, haven't you?
I have, yes. So And that was just by chance as well. So it was a jazz festival that I took photographs of for free, actually. But it was an amazing festival. But then the venue I was taking photographs in was closing down. So somebody who was involved with the venue started writing a book about it and used some of my photographs and paid for that. I had another publication with some of my elbow photos used in as well. So I've had a few used over the years. And having your photographs published in a magazine or a newspaper is excellent because it does
pay. Obviously. And it's amazing. I mean, I think this is also an important point, because people think, oh, I don't want to do it for free, but then, as you say, you never know who might find your photos one day and use them, and then they will pay you for it. So that's amazing.
Definitely. The more people see how good you are at what you do, the more they want to use you, and they want to use your images. And and then the school photography, obviously within school, I was taking photographs all of the time of different events. And then my photograph got recognized within the schools that I was in contact with. So that led on to me doing school photography as well, which is so similar to what I'm doing at gigs. It's all the same skills. So it sort of links in really well. I'm using the same skills, but in different contexts.
Yeah.
And that's all. I should say that's all through word of mouth and just people seeing my images within my work environment.
Yeah, that's a very good point you're raising there, because I think especially in schools, I don't really know how schools approach finding a photographer, but I assume, as you say, first of all, they would probably ask people, and then they would probably search online. So it's, as you say, important to be already kind of known as a photographer.
Yes, and have a relationship. And there are companies that just do specialize in school photography. So there are school photography websites where they'll employ lots of different photographers to go into school to take. Obviously, when I talk about my school photography, I'm not talking about the portraiture that you have the children take annually. I'm talking about the events in schools.
Right.
And there are sites that do school photography where they employ a lot of different photographers. But there's also companies that specialize in helping you set up your personal freelancing school photography business, which are so helpful and so useful. And then they will be able to promote you as well. So as with any industry, there are lots of different ways in.
No, that's a very good tip, I think. And the school photography you earn money with.
I do, yes. So I have a set hourly fee, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that because it might not be clear to everyone.
So they book me at the beginning of each term. The schools I work with book me for the days they want, because that's a priority, because obviously school calendars are fixed. So they'll all go in the diary before I book anything else, any other photography bookings, for example, location shoots or gigs, etc. Gigs, luckily my music photography is usually in the evening and the weekends, and the school photography is in the daytime, so it works out perfectly, really. Yeah,
that's actually really a good combination, isn't it? And it gives you the flexibility to do the school events, but still then have time to do other things for your music photography. So that's a really good combination, actually.
It does. It works perfectly.
Yeah. Well done. Okay, so we've already started talking about how you make money from photography. So you said obviously through the school photography, but I would like to ask you, how else do people find you or approach you when it comes to your photography services?
So obviously there's the website, but that's not usually the first way in. So there's a link on my Instagram to my website so people can see my photographs clearer and see selected images. But to get new clients, my first port of call is People Per Hour, which is a really useful website when you're starting out, when you're at grassroots level. But I would say people seem to use it continually because it's somewhere you can go to to find something very specific. So it's not just me saying, okay, I can do your gig photography, or I can do your product photography, or I can do a location shoot of you with your fiance. It's also people posting jobs on there. So they might say, I'm looking for a photographer to do product photography of my baby wear. And you put in a bid for that job. And they might get, say, 20 or so people, and they'll choose the one that they think fits that job mostly. So it's a really useful resource as well.
Yeah, that sounds good.
You pay the site a percentage, but that's because they're promoting you.
Yeah, of course.
They email you when they have jobs that they think would suit you. I found it really useful for starting out.
Yeah, that sounds very good. And I think people per hour is very well known now and established. So it is, I guess, a very good platform to do the networking that is necessary in the beginning, to have, you know, also probably to become aware of what is actually in demand, because, you know, if people post jobs, they could be of any nature, couldn't they?
Yes, yeah, definitely, yeah. And I have noticed like one thing in this lockdown period, because there aren't, obviously, during this time you can't go and take photographs of people.
Yeah.
It's really useful for starting up your skills on food photography and product photography, because that's something that can possibly be done without having to be there. They can post you the products, you can take photographs in your home studio, etc.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? That photography gives you such a flexibility in the way that there are lots of different avenues you can explore. So you probably also started exploring a little bit of food photography.
I have. I've been, so the lockdown period has been wonderful for training myself at home. So I've been doing food photography at home, product photography. I've been doing a lot of nature photography, which brings me on to the next thing, which I think might be your next question, is another platform for earning money, which is stock image sites.
Yes.
So there are a lot of stock image sites, and because obviously we have a lot of time on our hands at the moment, I've been using the time to build my stock image site. So I joined my first stock image site, I guess, about 1.5 years ago, and I put some photos on, and I didn't really do very much on there because I was doing other things. So a stock image site, in case people don't know, is where you upload images and people might want to do a blog, for example, about working from home. So they'll go on a stock image site and try and find a picture of somebody working at a computer. Or they might be doing a blog about a walk in the countryside. So they go on there. So
well, I do that all the time for my blogs.
Yes, there you go. And you pay an amount of money. So you can either pay for a single image, I think, on some sites, or you can subscribe for the year and have so many during the year. So you load your photographs onto the stock image site. You give them a title. The title is really key and really important. It's because that's what they'll find on Google. When you Google search, is the title of your photograph. It needs to be very specific, describing what it is. And then you keyword them. So it's usually 50 keywords per website. Now, the keywording is important, but it takes a long time. But once you get used to different systems, you find quick ways of doing it. So it's a good thing to sort of like, some people put a lot of time into Shutterstock and can earn money from it. But you've got to have so many, for me, I found that you have to have so many images on there for it to generate interest. It does take a lot of time. So it's a good thing to work out during lockdown. But I should add, I'm quite new to it. So other people's experiences are very broad, but it is about, I've heard it's about numbers. You've got to have a lot of photos on there.
I can imagine, because you only get a percentage, I assume, right? Or how does it work?
Yes. Yeah. You get paid a certain amount, and the amount you get paid depends on which stock site you're using, stock image site. I think how long you've been on there, because your profile obviously increases the more photos you have on there. You get seen more with more profile. But I'm not an expert on stock image sites. I'll hold my hand up and say that I'm quite new to it.
Okay, but it's another interesting, aspects that you can utilize, I guess, if you want to, as a photographer.
It is, and also there are some really useful YouTube tutorials on how to best approach stock image sites to get your work noticed and to get people buying images.
So when people buy your image, do they see that you as a photographer took it, and can they also then visit your website?
They can visit your portfolio.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So
But
it is
again,
another way to also kind of promote yourself, I guess.
It's, yeah. So it depends on the site, and it depends on what you put on there. So they have what they call discoverability. So yes, they can, if you put your Instagram on there, they can see your Instagram. If you put your Facebook photography page on, they can see that. So it's up to you. And that's what I like about the Shutterstock, is when you're first trying it out, you just limit what you put on there to get used to using it. But then as you become more confident, then you can add different aspects to your profile. You can put links to your website, links to your
that's actually really good, I think, because I think from what I gather from your experiences is that it is all about being present in lots of different places, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And being on top of that, you've got to like update. So I have a system every day, a routine every day, where I update my Shutterstock, I update my Instagram, I update my website. So it's just being on top of it every day.
Yeah, and going back to the keyword aspect, which I find really interesting as well. So is that very time consuming? Say, if you're uploading, I don't know, maybe 20 photos on one of those stock image sites, how long does it usually take you to do all the keywords and all of that?
Well, I found cheats.
Okay, well, you don't have to give it away, of course, but
so there are hashtag generators. So you can find on the video tutorials that you look on YouTube, you'll find that people have developed hashtag generators, where you can put your photo in and it will generate 30 or so hashtags, and then you put them in on the website, and then on the website it also gives you hashtag generators as well, or keyword generators, so you can get some from there as well. It still takes time, obviously. We also do them in groups. So for example, I took 3 different images of magpies today, all different but all similar, so they could all have the keywords. So I highlighted them all at the same time, did the same keywords for each of them, so that cut my time in into a third of the amount of time I would have taken. So as you get used to it, you find ways of making it quicker as well.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. I mean, I also work with keywords, obviously, for my blog. And I have to also add keywords to photographs that I use on my blog as well. So I kind of do a similar thing, because most of my images and my blogs are usually about the same or similar topics. So you can also create like a kind of keyword bank, I suppose, in a document or in an Excel sheet, and then you can always revert to that as well. So that's a really good tip as well, I think, because it's very important for people to find them.
Yes, you want to be found.
Exactly. Okay, so I think we're nearly at the end. Just one last question that I have is so you already spoke about Instagram, and that this is your main tool, I suppose, to network, but also to kind of expose your photography. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So because Instagram is so big and it's like so popular and so many people are on it, do you feel that it makes it easier or harder as a photographer to be found and to establish themselves?
Again, I think it's about the keywords. So when you're putting in your keywords, always put in photographer. For example, I always put London photographer, and then add the photographer tag in relation to the photograph. Then you'll be found more easy. Again, all of these tips I found out just by Googling myself and going on like which hashtags should I use. And then also use your link in bio as well. So the other way of making money for photographers, of course, is fine prints. So if you've been doing travel photography and you've been doing some beautiful pictures of the Northern Lights or Niagara Falls, and you've got prints that you want to sell on your website, put your link in the bio. That's another way. The link is there for people to link to your website to sell the image. But it's also making it clear on your Instagram that this is your job, this is your profession, you're a photographer.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's definitely a very good point. And with regards to your websites, do you feel there are any tips you want to share with regards to your website, because you know, in the book that I have published, I kind of point out that it is always good to have your own website, just because it gives people the opportunity to actually see your profile without it being hosted by somebody else, if you see what I mean.
Definitely.
So, you know,
yeah.
if you have it on Instagram, great, but it's still, you know, it's still within Instagram. It's not you as a person, completely yourself. So how would you say, or do you have any tips about building a website as a photographer? What have you found was important for your website?
Well, for me, it was about keeping the interface simple. It's about the photographs. It's not about what's going on in the background.
Yeah.
Also, your About Me section is really important. Have a photograph up. People want to see the person that they're
behind the camera.
working with. Yes, definitely. Have a photograph up and a little history about how you arrived there, about your passion, about what you're interested in photography. That people want to know that. That's really important, but make the links clear. So don't have too many, make the blog clear, the contact clear, but also your different pages. So mine's very specific. There's the portraiture, there's the new music, and there's the live music photographs. So people know exactly what they're heading for. And also test your page on your site on your friends on different devices. People go on a website and the page won't load, or they can't access it properly because they're on an iPad or on an iPhone, not on a laptop. That is crucial. People need to be able to look at it quickly and see.
Yeah, especially with the photographs, right? Because that's what they're really interested in. So they want to see, you know, the photographs that you put up, of course. Yeah, that's a very good tip. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot, and you have you have shared amazing tips, and I think this is really helpful for people who are maybe just starting out, or who are maybe tired of their main job and want to move into photography. You know, and I think your journey is so interesting, because what I love about your story is that you came from teaching into photography, but the skills that you learned in teaching, for example, helped you as well with your photography freelancing. So I think for me, what I take from that is that, you know, we it's like we're growing, isn't it? And
definitely,
just because you've decided to become a teacher 21 years ago doesn't mean you have to do it for the rest of your life, because you develop different passions and different interests, and you follow them, don't you? So no, it's great, and it's very inspiring, I think, for me especially. I mean, I'm not a good photographer, but I think it's great to see that you took that leap, and you know, you decided to really follow your passion, and you're very happy with it, obviously.
Definitely. I don't regret it. I'm loving it.
That's great. So yeah, thank you so much for your
my pleasure. Thank you.
Your great tips and for your great advice. And if anyone wants to know more about Petra, you can obviously find her on Instagram and on her website, of course. And thank you so much for taking the time. And we can share some more if people want.
Definitely, definitely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun talking about my passion.
Great. No, I can tell. Thank you so much. And bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.